Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video. Hi everyone, looking for help on a pressing issue. I'm 60, male. My wife has a daughter from a previous marriage that is getting married this summer. She doesn't want me at her wedding because the circumstances in which her mom and I met are not great. I was actually my stepdaughter's teacher and met both of her parents at conference night. At that time, my wife, Sarah, was still married to her ex. I was quite a bit older than her, but we hit it off. We ended up having an affair and she left her husband a couple of years later. I do regret how things went down, but I'm also happier than ever with Sarah. So in my mind, all's well that ends well. And this was many years in the past, so I prefer to let bygones be bygones. However, my stepdaughter, Natalia, feels different. Natalia thinks that because of our background, it wouldn't be right for me to be at her wedding. Her real father has never forgiven me or her mother, and she wants him to have a good time and says my presence would ruin that. To me, this was a ridiculous statement because I have been Natalia's stepfather for 10 years now. We have a fine relationship, and any tension I had with her father is far in the past. There is no valid reason in my mind that I would not be present at her wedding. It quite honestly shook me to my core when she stated it so bluntly to me. I expected Sarah to back me up and argue that I should be there. I mean, I'm married to the mother of the bride, for heaven's sake. What else am I going to do that day? I can't just sit at home. But instead, she just bowed down to her daughter's commands and said, "Okay, sweetie." I was disgusted. It has been an ongoing problem in our marriage that I feel like Sarah lets her kids walk all over her. I told her that if she couldn't stand up for me to Natalia, then none of my money better be going to a wedding that I'm banned from. Sarah doesn't work, so this would mean a big budget cut for Natalia and her fiancé. I would have been happy to help out. But now? No way. My wife assured me that she would respect this and tell Natalia. Yes, I felt crappy about doing this, but I was also hurt. I figured I had made the logical decision that any hurt family member would make when banned from a wedding of a person they love. Well, plot twist, as the kids say. I took some time to think about it and realized that it actually did make complete sense why Natalia wouldn't want me at the wedding. Her dad had recently lost his second wife to cancer and lost his job within the same year. Enough bad things had happened to him. What was the sense of rubbing salt in the wound and having his ex-wife and her affair partner shoved in his face at the wedding? The man may not be anywhere close to my friend, but as a human being, I can still say he deserves to have nothing but happy memories at his daughter's wedding. And I realized that this is what Natalia was considering all along, that had led her to uninviting me. I had gotten so personally worked up over it that I was forgetting to see things through her eyes. I realized that I should gracefully bow out and let her know I understand exactly why I wasn't invited and that there were no hard feelings. I went to go to find her to tell her exactly that and found her and my wife in the kitchen chatting quietly. That's when I overheard my wife say something I can never forgive her for. Natalia was crying and my wife was rubbing her back. She told her, "I have access to his money. Don't worry about it. We can still pay for the whole wedding. I buy stuff all the time and he's never noticed. Why do you think I keep him around?" Excuse me? It's bad enough for my wife to use my money without my permission, but to offer to do so after I just told her I didn't want to be funding a wedding I wasn't invited to? I couldn't believe it. And the fact that she has done this before and apparently only keeps me around for this exact reason, it was like knife after knife in my back. I got so angry and started a big fight with her. By the end of it, I had thrown and shattered a wine glass, thrown my wedding ring out the window. My stepdaughter was sobbing, and my wife was furious at me. We all took some time to cool off, and once we came back together that night, I tried to explain myself to my wife. I told her my thoughts when I had not been invited to this wedding and how at first I was angry about that. But the more I thought about it, the more I understood why her daughter wouldn't want me there with her dad. Then I explained how I had come into the kitchen to apologize and tell her that, but when I saw them discussing using my money without my permission, instead it sent me into a rage. Things would have been all cleared up had they just not been having that conversation. I thought that this would clear things up and that my wife would forgive me for throwing the wine glass and becoming so enraged. But instead, she said that my behavior had no excuse. When I brought up her comment about how the money is what she keeps me around for, she said it was just a joke and she was trying to cheer up Natalia with humor since she was so upset. She also said that she apparently has money of her own saved up in a separate account from when she got part of her inheritance, and that was what she was going to use to help out Natalia. She says she didn't tell me or Natalia this because she knew we would tell her not to spend her inheritance on this wedding, even though that's what she wanted to spend the money on. I was ashamed after hearing this explanation. I asked for forgiveness, but Sarah just walked out. Then her and Natalia left to get a late dinner. I decided to follow them to try to make things right. Once I got to the restaurant, I was enraged because I realized that they were meeting up with my wife's ex-husband, the father of my stepdaughter, and discussing wedding details with him instead of me. After such a big fight, I couldn't believe that Sarah would choose to go to this dinner instead of working things out with me. They looked like a happy family together in that restaurant. I felt tears begin to sting my eyes. In that moment, I felt completely cut out of their lives. I sat in my parked vehicle and watched through the restaurant window as they all laughed and ate a happy dinner, as if we hadn't just had a huge blow-up fight at our house that could mean the end of my marriage as I know it. Then I saw my wife put down my credit card to pay for this meal, and I completely lost it once again. The emotional roller coaster between sadness and anger was never ending, it seemed. But now, anger had completely taken control. I stormed into the restaurant and began loudly confronting my wife and her ex-husband. I'll admit, I had a few glasses of whiskey at home that might have contributed to my behavior. The ex-husband tried to step in, and pretty soon things became physical. I pushed him up against the table and told him he had no business going out to dinner with my wife. Then my stepdaughter yelled that that was her dad and he had every right to help her plan her wedding, unlike me. Pretty soon, the workers at the restaurant were kicking us out, and my wife and stepdaughter were so embarrassed at the scene I had caused. In the parking lot, my wife's ex told me I needed to calm down and that maybe I should stay somewhere else for the night rather than with Sarah and Natalia. I couldn't believe he was telling me what to do. Without even thinking, I threw the first punch. We ended up getting into a brawl in the parking lot, and other bystanders called the police. When the police showed up, I was charged with assault and had to spend the night in jail. My wife didn't even bail me out. I'm guessing because she was so upset with me. I had lots of time to think about it in jail, and I don't think I'm in the wrong. The wedding is one thing, and I had honestly come to terms with that. I know Sarah and Natalia think I was being a jerk about that, but I didn't even get a chance to apologize before the issues escalated. Money is the real issue now. I can understand why I'm not invited to the wedding. Yes, at first it hurt my feelings and I overreacted. But now, the big issue is how they are using my money willy-nilly with no respect for me. I don't believe my wife that she was joking about that being the reason she keeps me around. I got home and informed my wife that she and her daughter needed to move out. If all she sees me as is a walking paycheck, then she can walk out the door. I made her hand over her credit cards that I pay for before she left too. She says I'm overreacting and she can't believe how the events escalated all the way to this. I don't know if my marriage is worth saving. AITA? I took a few days to reflect on everything and then called Sarah and asked to get together to discuss things. I was able to stay calm when I explained to her my feelings and that I was worried that she was truly using me for money. She pointed out that I'm only a teacher, and if she really wanted to use someone for money, she would have had an affair with a doctor. My wife has a great sense of humor like that. I'm hoping to redeem our marriage and work through my impulsive emotions. My wife isn't perfect, but I think we have something worth saving. YTA. You totally overreacted, dude, and honestly, your behavior is almost abusive. Throwing a wine glass? Getting in a fist fight? Get anger management help, and probably say goodbye to your marriage. I think in this particular circumstance, YTA, because you let your emotions control your reactions beyond what was reasonable. Only you can decide whether your marriage is worth saving, if you feel it is. I think therapy would be a great thing for you individually and with your wife. You're probably not a bad person, and this situation can still be redeemed. I, 20, female, have a roommate, 24, male, and we split rent 50-50 for a 2-bedroom apartment. We get along pretty well and have never had any problems. As part of our renter's agreement with the landlord, we're only allowed one guest over at a time for a week max with the consent of the other roommate. So, if I want to have a friend stay with me for a few days, my roommate has to agree, and vice versa. We both have had friends over before, and it's always gone over peacefully. We both also have had more than one friend over with no issues because we respected each other's space and belongings. It's important to note here that I've only ever invited over other women, and he's only ever invited over other men. Our guests also stay in our own bedrooms. 3 weeks ago, one of my friends, Mike, 22, male, needed a place to stay for 3 days because he was leaving an abusive partner. I asked my roommate if it was all right to have him over for those 3 days. I explained the sensitivity of the situation, and I promised, as always, to cover any extra expenses caused by Mike being over. My roommate refused because he said he didn't feel comfortable with a man being invited over. I had no clue what he was talking about, and I was very annoyed, but I respected his choice. My friends and I put money together to get Mike a hotel room for those 3 days instead. Today, my roommate asked if he could have 2 friends over for Friday and the weekend. I said no because it was against the renter's rules. He was confused because we both agreed to break the rules before, but I said to him that I didn't feel comfortable with 2 strange men over. He could tell straight away that I was doing it to annoy him because he didn't let Mike stay over. Plus, I have met the friends he was inviting over before. He told me to stop being childish because he has a right to refuse guests for being uncomfortable, whereas I was doing it to be annoying. What's even more irritating is that he has met Mike before, and they get along with each other. He then said he'd invite them over anyway, but I said I'd call the landlord if he did so. We got into an argument, and he called me an a-hole for threatening to call the landlord over this. I still don't think I'm wrong because I am allowed, in the agreement, to refuse guests for any reason, but I would like an objective opinion. AITA? NTA. He knew of this friend of yours. Why would he deny this visit? Both of you had your understanding and arrangements. You both would have guests over. I'm curious, is this the first time you wanted a male guest to stay over? I think your roommate probably has feelings for you, or probably thinks he's going to face half-naked men coming from your room. If he wanted to suddenly play the no card, then you're free to do the same. Actions have consequences. He shouldn't expect you to be accommodating when he isn't. You weren't bringing over a stranger. NTA, this is so funny. He can refuse because he's uncomfortable with a guy in an emergency situation that he's enjoyed meeting before, makes him uncomfortable, but he can invite multiple people you've never met, and that's you just being annoying, and he's going to do it anyway? Yeah, I would be calling the landlord hourly with complaints. My husband's mom and sisters are all very excited about us having a baby and offered to throw a baby shower for me. 2 of the 3 sisters have had baby showers for their pregnancies. The youngest is not a mom yet, but they seem to have a theme they use for all the showers, which is this family history genealogy thing where the decorations are family trees and you get these nursery decorations. My husband said they did the same for his brother's wives when they were expecting. He knows that is not the kind of theme I would be comfortable with and had asked them to not do the same thing. Telling them something fresh would be nice for a change. They agreed initially, but then said they had a great idea to make it perfect for us. But the whole theme is a very difficult thing for me. I was an affair baby. My mom didn't want me. She left me with my dad and his wife, who didn't want me either, but did keep me. I spent 8 years in a house with 2 adults and 2 other kids who saw me as a painful reminder of what my dad had done, and who hated me for it. Then my dad and his wife died, and I was placed in foster care while my half-siblings went to live with my grandparents. I was bounced around, aged out of foster care, decided to track down my mom, hoping what I was told was wrong. But it wasn't, and was still very true for her. I reached out to my siblings to see if they had changed, how they felt about me, but they hadn't. So I was alone, with no family and no family history that I could talk about. I knew my parents' names and the names of my dad's wife and kids. That was it. And not one of those people loved or wanted me. So the theme upsets me because I have nothing to contribute. My son will have a lot of unknowns about his medical history because nobody ever wanted to give me any of that. There's no happy photos or cute stories about a grandma or an aunt to share with him. There is on my husband's side. Despite knowing all this, 2 of the sisters are still insisting the theme is going ahead because it's what this family does. I really don't want to be surrounded by that and the sadness it brings me. I told them how uncomfortable it made me feel, but they dismissed it. My husband's mom and his younger sister are trying to get them to change it, but WIBTA if I don't go? I had suggested that maybe it would be better if they have a party for themselves and leave me out of it, but they said they have gone to a lot of effort and I would be rude if I didn't show up. NTA. But your mother-in-law and sister-in-laws are. Your husband will be also if he doesn't shut their mess down. They're his issues to deal with. My baby wouldn't be spending time with the in-laws otherwise. I'm so sorry about your own family. They're also huge, massive, selfish, hateful AHs for treating you like they did. You were an innocent child and deserved so much better. If your in-laws refuse to understand your feelings, then they don't deserve you. Your husband needs to man up and deal with them immediately. He has to let them know If you all show up and they do the unwanted theme, you all are leaving right then. If he can't manage that, then do not go. He can go alone. They're the rude ones, not you. You're carrying the baby, so the shower is for you and the baby. I'm so sad you have to deal with these people. I hope things get better. NTA, present a theme you do find acceptable. A cartoon character, rainbows, something you like. Make sure your husband is firm. You are appreciative that they want to host a shower. However, if they go forth with this genealogy, then you will not be there. If there is so much as a mention or a single tree, you will both walk out and they will not be present for anything else regarding your family. You, baby, and hubby being the only family that matters here. No birthdays, no Christmas, no photos or updates. Complete NC. Because this is just the start of how they will override your parenting and family choices to their own preferences. His family is not only being AH, but it is downright rude and frankly abusive and cruel. NTA, this is a party meant for you, not them. If they are adamant they keep the theme as they want it, then they can have a party without you. Maybe your husband can go in your place to keep the peace. However, I want to add something. You didn't have a trusting and supportive family growing up. You didn't know your history, but your child is going to. You now can start that history for her, him. Your past is not theirs, and you do not want to put your trauma onto your child. If you aren't in therapy trying to process what you've been through, I really suggest you start.